The Ember Chronicles Part 13 of the Galactic War Saga. Starborn Veil. Chapter 1. Shadows Beneath the Veil. The Eidolon drifted silently through the endless void, its hull scarred by battles fought and won, but the war was far from over. Beneath the flickering lights of the command deck, tension hung thick, a palpable weight pressing down on every soul aboard. Captain Kalen Vera stood near the central console, eyes scanning the streams of data flowing across translucent displays. The Starborn Veil had remained a shadow, a ghost in the war, but now signs of their presence were surfacing with alarming frequency. Lieutenant Mira Solin's fingers danced across the controls, analyzing sensor logs and cryptic transmissions intercepted over the past cycles. Something had shifted. The subtle distortions in space-time around the Maelstrom Belt were no longer isolated anomalies. They were deliberate, orchestrated. Whispers of an ancient faction manipulating events from the shadows had long circulated, but concrete proof was elusive. Now, the Starborn Veil was real, and their agenda was more dangerous than anyone had anticipated. The relics from the Ascendants, once dormant, were awakening in scattered pockets throughout the galaxy. The Eidolon's recent encounter at the Citadel had revealed only a fragment of their power. The Starborn Veil sought to claim these relics, to bend their celestial energies to unknown ends. Kalen's mind raced through alliances and betrayals, recalling the fracturing of the Obsidian Covenant and the Veilborn's whispered threats. This was no mere power struggle. It was a collision of legacies older than the stars themselves. A sudden alert interrupted the tense calm. Sensors picked up a surge of energy near the outskirts of a dying star system, a signature unmistakably tied to Ascendant technology. Kalen ordered immediate course adjustment, the Eidolon pivoting gracefully into the dark expanse. As they approached, the crew glimpsed an ancient battlefield littered with the ruins of star ships and shattered planets. Amidst the wreckage, a faint, ethereal glow pulsed rhythmically. Lieutenant Myra's voice cut through the hum of the ship. The energy signature matched an Ascendant relic, but unlike anything cataloged. Its power was raw, untamed, and dangerously unstable. The crew prepared for the unknown, their every move shadowed by the knowledge that the Starborn Veil was watching, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The galaxy was no longer just a battleground. It was a game played beneath a veil of secrets, where every step could unravel the future. Kalen steeled himself. The next move would define the fate of all they fought for. The Starborn Veil was no longer a whisper in the dark. It was the storm looming on the horizon. Chapter 2. The Relic Shadow. The Eidolon's engines hummed with quiet urgency as the starship slid deeper into the dying system's ghostly remnants. Fractured asteroid fields drifted lazily through the void, remnants of celestial battles waged eons ago. Faint radiation ripples traced the scars of forgotten wars, whispering secrets to those who dared to listen. Captain Kalen Vera stood at the observation deck, eyes fixed on the spectral glow ahead. Lieutenant Mira Solin's analysis came through crisp and precise. The relic was unlike any they had encountered before, a pulsating orb of shifting light and shadow, suspended within a fragment of crystalline rock, orbiting a shattered planetoid. Its power signature was erratic, unstable, yet overwhelming. The Ascendants had left behind relics of unimaginable force, artifacts that bent the laws of physics and reality. Some had become weapons, others vessels of knowledge. This one, however, seemed alive, as if it breathed with a will of its own. Kalen felt the weight of history pressing on him. The Starborn Veil's relentless pursuit of such relics was more than conquest. It was an obsession with rewriting existence itself. The Veil's operatives were masters of secrecy, slipping through defenses like shadows, always just out of reach. Their motives were tangled in mystery, but the consequences of their success were clear: total domination. The Eidolon's tactical team began deploying reconnaissance drones, sleek machines designed to approach and scan without triggering the relic's dormant defenses. As the drones neared the orb, the ship's sensors flared, detecting a sudden spike in energy. "Relic is responding," Mira said, her voice tense. "It's activating." The crystalline prison cracked with radiant fractures, and the orb pulsed brighter, casting eerie light across the debris. The relic's power surged outward in waves, distorting space-time around the Eidolon. Crew members felt the subtle tug at their senses, a disorienting sensation that blurred the lines between past and present. In the midst of the ship's chaos, Kalen's mind flashed back to the legends told by the Ascendant Elders, warnings etched in stone and memory. The relics were not mere tools. They were living legacies, bound by ancient pacts and curses. To disturb them was to invite calamity. Suddenly, an alert blared from the tactical console. A stealth vessel materialized just beyond sensor range, a craft shrouded in the Starborn Veil's signature cloak. The enemy had arrived. "Battle stations," Kalen commanded. The crew sprang into action with practiced precision. Energy shields flared as the Eidolon braced for impact, while targeting arrays locked onto the approaching intruder. The Starborn Veil's ship darted forward, weaving through the shattered remains with deadly grace. Its weapons unleashed searing beams of cobalt plasma, slicing through the Eidolon's defenses. The ship rocked under the assault, alarms screaming through the corridors. Amidst the chaos, Kalen locked eyes with Mira, a silent understanding passing between them. This was more than a fight for survival. It was a race to control a power that could shape the destiny of the galaxy. As the battle raged, the relic's glow intensified, and strange energy tendrils reached out, weaving through the void like spectral fingers. The Eidolon's systems flickered under the relic's influence, and reality itself seemed to warp. Kalen realized the true danger. If the Starborn Veil captured the relic, they could harness its power to tear open rifts in space and time, unleashing forces beyond comprehension. With grim determination, Kalen ordered a risky maneuver to breach the relic's orbit and secure it before the enemy could. The ship surged forward, engines straining against the relic's gravitational pull. Boarding teams readied themselves, donning enhanced armor and weapons adapted to counter Ascendant energies. Their mission was clear: seize the relic, or destroy it if necessary. As the Eidolon closed in, a blinding flash engulfed the battlefield. The relic unleashed a wave of raw energy, engulfing both ships in a tempest of light and shadow. The fabric of space trembled, and the very stars seemed to waver. In that moment, Kalen felt a profound shift, as if the relic was awakening, responding not just to proximity, but to the intentions of those who sought to claim it. The war for the Starborn Veil had begun in earnest, and the cost would be higher than anyone imagined. Chapter 3: Fractured Alliances. The aftermath of the relic's awakening left the Eidolon drifting amid the shattered remains of the star system, its hull scored and systems strained. Yet the war was far from over. Captain Kalen Vera stood at the command console, watching the shifting tactical displays with a heavy heart. The Starborn Veil's assault had exposed vulnerabilities, but it also revealed something far more troubling: fractures within their own ranks. Lieutenant Mira Solon reported a surge of encrypted communications intercepted from multiple factions. The once unified alliances were splintering, the old loyalties giving way to ambition and fear. The Obsidian Covenant was fracturing under pressure, some warlords seeking uneasy truces with the Starborn Veil to survive the oncoming storm. Meanwhile, whispers of the Veilborns returned sowed discord in the outer systems. Kalen understood the stakes. The galaxy's fate hinged not only on strength, but on unity, a unity threatened by mistrust and betrayal. The relic had not just shifted the balance of power, it had shattered the delicate web holding their fragile coalition together. Amid the turmoil, Kalen summoned his trusted council for a grim strategy session. The room was thick with tension as commanders debated their next moves. Every decision felt like a gamble against an enemy who seemed to anticipate their every step. Kalen's gaze settled on Commander Rena Drax, whose battle group had taken the heaviest losses. Her expression was stoic but tired, the burden of leadership etched in every line of her face. The Eidolon's crew looked to her as a symbol of resilience, but even she could not hide the cracks forming beneath. Myra's voice broke the silence, her analysis sobering. The Starborn Veil was not just a faction of warriors. They were masters of manipulation, capable of turning allies into enemies with whispers and shadows. Their reach extended far beyond the battlefield, infecting politics and hearts alike. Kalen knew what had to be done. The crew needed more than weapons. They needed hope and a reason to believe in a future worth fighting for. Orders went out to strengthen defenses at key outposts, and envoys were dispatched to rally wavering allies. Intelligence efforts intensified, seeking the true motives behind the Starborn Veil's relentless pursuit of the Ascendant relics. As the Eidolons set course for a contested system rumored to harbor another artifact, Kalen couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking into a carefully laid trap. The Starborn Veil's veil of secrecy was thinning, but the danger lurking behind it was only growing. The war for the galaxy's soul was no longer just a clash of fleets and firepower. It was a battle for trust, for legacy, and for the very future of existence itself. Chapter 4: Veil of Deception. The Eidolon drifted through the darkness between stars, the void around it thick with silent menace. Captain Kalen Vera stood at the bridge, the glow from the panoramic viewport casting shadows across his face. Before them lay the Vorth system, a volatile cluster rumored to harbor one of the Ascendant's lost relics. It was a prize of immeasurable power, and a trap set with careful precision. The past weeks had been a whirlwind of betrayals, shattered alliances, and subtle machinations. The Starborn Veil had slipped past their defenses again and again, their influence spreading like a cancer through every level of galactic society. Mercenaries once loyal to the Obsidian Covenant had vanished, diplomatic channels were flooded with false intelligence, and trusted allies had become shadows themselves. Kalen's mind replayed the recent council meetings, where every word carried double meaning and every gesture masked hidden agendas. The war was no longer fought merely with weapons and fleets. It was a battle of whispers, deception, and veiled threats, where the line between friend and foe blurred into obscurity. Lieutenant Mira Solon monitored the tactical displays intently, her eyes narrowing as new data streams poured in. Scans of the Vorth system revealed a network of installations cloaked in advanced stealth tech, their signatures masked beneath the ambient radiation of the system's unstable stars. The relic was protected, not just by defenses, but by layers of misinformation and misdirection designed to trap the unwary. The Starborn Veil's operatives have been here, Mira said, her voice low but resolute. They've been harvesting energy from the system's dying stars to power their cloaking arrays. It's a sophisticated network, capable of hiding entire fleets in plain sight. Kalen nodded grimly. We have to assume they're expecting us. This mission isn't just about recovering the relic. It's about surviving their traps long enough to strike. Preparations for the operation began immediately. Boarding teams trained with relentless focus, their armor reinforced to withstand the ascendant energies rumored to saturate the relic's vicinity. Tactical officers briefed on every possible scenario, from full-scale assault to stealth extraction. Every system on the Eidolon was pushed to maximum readiness. Amid the preparations, tensions simmered beneath the surface. Commander Rena Drax gathered her battle group commanders in the strategy room, their faces etched with fatigue and determination. The Starborn Veil's reach was wider than anyone had imagined, and trust was a rare commodity. Keep your eyes open, Rena said sharply. We don't know who's loyal anymore. We move as one, or we fall apart. The days leading up to their arrival in the Vorth system were filled with restless anticipation. The crew worked in tense silence, each aware that the next step could decide the fate of countless lives. When the Eidolon emerged from hyperspace into the system's gravity well, the eerie glow of the dying stars bathed the ship in cold light. Sensor arrays scanned the area, but the usual readings were distorted, warped by the relic's residual energy and the Starborn Veil's cloaking technology. Suddenly, a burst of static filled the comms channel. A distorted voice spoke. A warning or a taunt, impossible to decipher. The Eidolon's AI scrambled to filter the message, but the intent was clear. They were being watched. Kalen's jaw tightened. This is it. We move carefully and fast. The relic is here, and the Starborn Veil will not let it go without a fight. The boarding teams deployed in stealth pods, slipping through the shadows toward the relic's hidden vault. The Eidolon maintained a tight perimeter, its weapons primed for any sign of hostile engagement. Inside the system's fractured moons, the teams encountered layers of defenses, energy barriers flickering with ascended symbols, automated sentries whose targeting systems adapted unpredictably, and shifting labyrinthine corridors designed to disorient and trap intruders. Mira led the Central Strike team, her calm precision a beacon in the chaos. Every step brought them closer to the relic, but also deeper into the Starborn Veil's web. Suddenly, a tremor rippled through the vault. The relic's energy surged, responding to their presence with a raw, pulsating power that reverberated through the crystalline walls. The air thickened, charged with ancient forces awakening after centuries of silence. The boarding teams pushed forward, only to be met by Starborn Veil operatives, shadows in the darkness, moving with lethal grace and wielding weapons infused with ascendant energy. The battle ignited in bursts of searing light and echoing explosions, the clash of technology and ancient power shaking the very foundations of the vault. Kalen coordinated the Eidolon support, deploying drones and reinforcements as the battle escalated. The Starborn Veil fought not just for control, but for domination, their eyes burning with fanatic fervor. In the midst of the conflict, Mira reached the relic's core chamber. The orb floated suspended within a complex matrix of glowing conduits, its light shifting like a living flame. As she approached, holographic runes flickered to life, projecting warnings and fragments of ascendant lore. The relic was more than a weapon. It was a repository of knowledge and power, containing secrets that could unravel the fabric of reality or rebuild it anew. Myra's hands trembled as she touched the orb, feeling a surge of energy that transcended comprehension. Suddenly, the chamber shook violently. The Starborn Veil's leader emerged, a figure clad in dark armor etched with ancient symbols, eyes glowing with unnatural light. The final confrontation was at hand, a battle not just of weapons, but of wills and fates intertwined. Kalen's voice came through comms, steady and commanding. Hold the line. We fight for the future, no matter the cost. The chapter closed on the clash of titans, the fate of the relic hanging in the balance, and the Eidolon's crew caught in a storm of power, deception, and destiny. Chapter 6: The Shattered Horizon. The Eidolon drifted silently in the cold void, its battered hull scarred by the recent assault. Though the enemy had been repelled, the cost weighed heavily on every crew member. The ship's corridors were quiet, a temporary calm between storms, but beneath that stillness, a tempest brewed. Captain Kalen Vera sat alone in the observation lounge, staring out into the vast expanse of stars. The distant lights, once a source of hope, now seemed indifferent to the struggles unfolding beneath them. He rubbed his tired eyes and leaned forward, fingers interlocked, wrestling with the enormity of the choices ahead. The relic sat secured within the containment chamber, its soft pulsations a constant reminder of the power they had barely begun to comprehend. It was a puzzle, ancient, alien, and dangerous. The crew's best minds were tirelessly working to unravel its secrets, but the more they learned, the more questions emerged. Lieutenant Mira Solin entered quietly, her footsteps muted against the polished floor. Her usually sharp eyes were clouded with exhaustion, but the fire of determination still burned bright. Kalen gestured to the seat opposite him. "What have you found?" Mira hesitated before sitting, fingers tapping a steady rhythm on the armrest. The relic's energy fluctuates unpredictably. It's as if it's alive, responding not just to physical stimuli, but to intent. Our scans detected patterns, echoes of consciousness trapped within the artifact. Ascendant minds try to communicate across the eons. Kalen nodded slowly, digesting the implications. "Do we understand what they're trying to say?" "Not fully," Mira admitted. "Fragments of warnings, pleas, and challenges. They hint at a catastrophic event tied to the relic network. Something that shattered the Ascendants long ago. We're dealing with forces that transcended time and space. If we trigger the wrong sequence, it could unleash devastation beyond anything we've faced." Kalen's eyes darkened. "Then we have to be careful. This is no longer just a war against the Starborn Veil or the Obsidian Covenant. It's a battle against the legacy of an ancient catastrophe." Behind them, the ship's AI chimed softly. Incoming transmission from Commander Rena Drax. The captain signaled to bring the feed on the main screen. Rena appeared, her face drawn but resolute, flanked by her battle group officers. "Kalen," she began, voice steady despite the fatigue in her eyes. "We've established a forward base on the fringe of the Virac sector. Intelligence reports suggest the Starborn Veil is moving to secure another Ascendant relic rumored to be hidden within the star cluster designated Helion 9. Kalen leaned forward. "What's their strength there?" Rena's gaze hardened. "They're deploying heavy cruisers and specialized assault teams. It's an escalation. They know the stakes and aren't willing to lose ground. We need to act swiftly." Kalen exchanged a glance with Mira. "This could be a trap." Rena nodded. "Agreed. But if they secure that relic first, it could shift the balance irrevocably." The transmission ended, leaving an oppressive silence in its wake. Kalen rose, pacing the room as he formulated their next move. "We'll need to split our forces again," he said aloud. "A strike team to Helion 9 to intercept the relic, a defense fleet to guard our position here, and the remainder focused on deciphering the relic's secrets. Each mission will stretch us thinner, but we have no choice." Myra's voice was calm but firm. "The key is coordination. We can't afford missteps." Kalen's thoughts drifted to the countless lives depending on their decisions. "Prepare the teams. I want detailed briefings and contingency plans. This mission will test everything we have." Days later, the Eidolon strike fleet slipped through hyperspace toward the Helion 9 cluster. The void was a tapestry of distant suns and shattered worlds, the remnants of ancient cosmic upheavals. Scans revealed scattered debris fields and drifting satellites, remnants of long-forgotten civilizations consumed by time and war. On the bridge, Kalen stood beside Commander Rena Drax as sensors tracked the enemy's movements. The Starborn Veil's cruisers loomed on the edge of detection, their formations tight and disciplined, signaling a readiness for battle. Rena's hand hovered over the tactical display. "They're waiting for us." Kalen's jaw tightened. "We'll give them a fight they won't forget." The battle began with a sudden eruption of energy. Plasma bolts streaked across the void, interceptors weaving in deadly arcs. The Eidolon shields flared under the onslaught as the crew responded with practiced efficiency. Amid the chaos, Kalen coordinated strike teams to land on the surface of Helion 9's largest moon, a barren, rocky wasteland dotted with ancient ruins said to harbor the Ascendant relic. Mira led the boarding party, her squad moving with precision through the crumbling structures. The air was thin, charged with static and the latent energy of the relic's proximity. Every shadow seemed alive, every whisper a warning. They reached the inner sanctum, where the relic awaited. It was larger than the one aboard the Eidolon, a crystalline monolith radiating raw power. As Mira approached, holographic glyphs flickered into life, displaying cryptic symbols that shifted and pulsed. Suddenly, alarms echoed through their calms. The Starborn Veil's special forces had infiltrated the area, engaging them in brutal close-quarters combat. The relic's energy surged violently, responding to the conflict with bursts of blinding light and sonic tremors. Myra's squad fought desperately, weapons blazing and blades flashing, but the Veil's forces were relentless. The relic seemed to feed on the chaos, its power growing with every heartbeat. Kalen's voice crackled over the comms. "Hold your ground. Extract the relic, no matter the cost." The battle raged, both sides sustaining heavy losses. The relic's glow intensified, casting the moon in an ethereal radiance that seemed to warp reality itself. In the final moments, as the boarding party secured the relic, a pulse erupted from the monolith, a wave of energy that swept across the battlefield, knocking combatants off their feet and distorting space. The Eidolon's sensors detected a massive rift opening near the moon's surface, a tear in the fabric of space-time spilling strange, otherworldly energy into the cluster. Kalen stared in disbelief. The Ascendant relics were not just artifacts. They were gateways, keys to forces beyond understanding. The battle won, but the war far from over. The crew faced a future where the lines between reality and chaos blurred. Back aboard the Eidolon, tensions ran high as the consequences of their actions rippled through the fleet. The relic's power was a double-edged sword, offering hope and destruction in equal measure. Kalen gathered his senior officers. "We've crossed a threshold. The rift threatens to unravel the very fabric of our galaxy. We must find a way to control it, or be consumed." Myra's voice was steady. "Our research points to an ancient ascendant ritual, a way to stabilize the rifts using the relic's combined energy. But the cost is unknown, and the risks immense." Rena's gaze was unwavering. "We must prepare for anything. The Starborn Veil will exploit any weakness." Kalen nodded, steeling himself. The shattered horizon before them was a battleground of shadows, power, and uncertain futures. The fight for survival had entered a new era, one where ancient legacies and modern conflicts collided, and the fate of all hung in the balance. Chapter 7: Whispers Beneath the Veil. The storm around Kaylee's had not abated in 3 cycles. The Veil, once a shimmering curtain of cosmic light, now churned like a wounded predator, its tendrils lashing at the blackened void. The fleet hung at its edge, a speck against an ancient and unknowable expanse. Each ship's shields rippled with the force of the Veil's winds, as if space itself had decided to push them back. Admiral Soraya stood on the observation deck of the Vigilant Star, her hands clasped tightly behind her back. The reinforced glass gave her a panoramic view of the storm. Jagged arcs of violet lightning carved across the Veil's surface, and beyond them, shadows twisted and coiled in patterns that could not be entirely natural. The comm hissed at her side, breaking the silence. "Ma'am, the Lancer Patrol is overdue." No word from Commander Dalen or his escort. Her jaw tightened. Dalen was not the kind of man who went missing without leaving a trail. She kept her voice calm. "Send a pulse scan into the lower band of the Veil. Sweep the vector where they entered." The officer hesitated. "Admiral, the last scan destabilized our secondary array. The readings out here are—" "Do it," Soraya interrupted, sharper this time. A soft vibration ran through the deck as the ship's deep-range emitters engaged. The scan rolled outward, bending unnaturally as it touched the Veil's surface. For a moment, the holographic readout displayed only static. Then the interference parted, revealing faint signals. Not Dalen's transponder, but something older. Soraya stepped closer. The readings were faint but distinct, triangular pulses, repeating in a pattern every 4.7 seconds. Not random, not natural. Lieutenant Marek's voice was hushed. "That signature matches nothing in our archives. Nearest comparison puts it in alignment with precursor energy mapping." The word precursor hung heavy in the air. Even Marek seemed to regret saying it aloud. Soraya's mind went to the records from Vari's Prime, where the first confirmed precursor ruin had been unearthed. The structures had been dormant for millennia until someone had disturbed them. If this signal was genuine, it meant the veil was not just a natural barrier. It was guarding something. She turned to the tactical display. "Ready, my strike team. We're going in." The Vigilant Star's hangar buzzed with activity. Marines locked power couplings into their exosuits, while drone pilots calibrated swarm units for autonomous scouting. Soraya moved through them like a phantom, her own armor sealed in matte black, plating with the fleet insignia etched faintly across the chest. Merrick caught up with her at the dropship ramp. "You're personally leading the mission?" She didn't slow. "If what's inside that storm matches the signal, it's not something I trust to secondhand reports." The ramp sealed behind them. A low hum filled the dropship as its systems came alive, vibration running through the deck. Outside, the hangar's blast doors peeled open, revealing the maelstrom beyond. The pilot's voice carried over the intercom. "We're breaking the veil in 90 seconds. Brace for turbulence." Crossing the veil was like flying into the mouth of a living thing. The dropship's hull groaned under the strain, warning runes flashing across the cockpit displays. Static clawed at every channel, and for brief moments, Soraya swore she heard faint whispers under the interference, snatches of language that her neural translator could not interpret. Then, as abruptly as it had begun, the turbulence fell away. The storm had an interior. The space beyond was not black void, but an endless field of fractured light. Chunks of obsidian stone floated in a slow orbit around a central structure, massive, angular, and glowing with pale gold lines that pulsed like a heartbeat. Marek's voice trembled. "That's not a ship." "No," Soraya murmured. "It's a vault." The closer they flew, the more alien the construct became. The surfaces bore carvings too intricate to be human, etched in spiraling patterns that seemed to shift when viewed from different angles. The dropship's sensors refused to fix its exact dimensions. Each scan returned a different set of measurements, as if the vault were actively resisting being understood. They landed on a flat platform that seemed purpose-built for their arrival, though no beacon guided them. The moment Soraya's boots touched the surface, she felt it, a low vibration thrumming up through her armor into her bones. Her comm crackled, not with Marek's voice, but with something else. A cold, layered tone, neither male nor female, neither entirely synthetic nor alive. The veil thins. The Starborn return. Her HUD flickered violently, briefly replacing her view with flashes of alien stars, enormous shadowed figures walking between them, and a hand, five-fingered but impossibly long, reaching toward her. Marek's shout snapped her back. "Admiral, the vault is opening." The great central seam of the structure split apart with a grinding roar. Inside, darkness deeper than any shadow bled outward, carrying with it a sensation like gravity inverted. The Marines raised their weapons, but Soraya held up a hand. Something in that darkness was watching them. And then something stepped out. It was humanoid in the loosest sense, tall and narrow, its skin a shifting mosaic of starlight and obsidian plates. Where its face should have been was a single, vertical slit of pale light, unblinking. In one elongated hand, it held an orb of translucent crystal, inside which swirled constellations that didn't belong to any human chart. The voice returned, now coming directly from the figure. "The relics are waking. The veil will not hold." Before Soraya could speak, the ground beneath them buckled. The dropship's pilot screamed over the comm that the veil's storm was collapsing inward. Lightning arced across the vault's surface, striking the figure. Yet instead of harming it, the energy seemed to vanish into its form. It stepped toward her and pressed the crystal orb into her chest plate. The material of her armor rippled as if it were liquid, and the orb sank through without resistance, embedding itself somewhere inside her. Her vision blurred again, stars, screams, an ocean of black glass stretching to infinity, and then nothing. When she came to, The figure was gone. The vault's gates were closing, and Merrick was shouting for extraction. But as the dropship lifted, Soraya could still feel the faint hum of the orb inside her, and with it, the whispers. This time, they were in a language she could understand. You are chosen. The Starborn see through your eyes now. Chapter 8. Shadows Beneath the Starborn Veil. The wind screamed across the barren ridge, carrying with it the sting of crystalline dust. Each particle shimmered faintly in the pale light, as if the mountain itself bled the remains of ancient stars into the open air. Arion kept his hood drawn low, the fabric snapping against his cheek with every gust. Ahead, the trail snaked between jagged columns of stone, their surfaces etched with spiraling grooves no natural erosion could have made. The others followed in grim silence. Kalen's gaze swept the horizon, a soldier's instinct scanning for movement, while Veil drifted near the rear, eyes half-lidded in thought, the faint blue glow of his psionic field trailing like mist. Irindra walked at Arion's side, her expression unreadable, though her fingers never strayed far from the twin daggers at her belt. They had been climbing for hours. The air grew thinner with each step, the cold settling deeper into their bones. Somewhere ahead, past the veil of drifting dust, lay the entrance, or so Veil had promised. Arion's mind kept returning to the same truth. No one outside of myth had seen what they were chasing. The Veil's hollow. The one place said to bridge the mortal plane and the hidden domain of the Starborn themselves. Legends painted it as a sanctuary, a forge of celestial will. Others whispered it was a prison. The truth was irrelevant. If the Ascendant relic was there, they had no choice but to enter. A rumble echoed through the ridge, deep and resonant, as though the bones of the mountain were shifting. Kalen froze, hand on the hilt of his sword. The sound passed slowly, fading into the wind, but it left a tension in the air that none of them could shake. They pressed on. Half an hour later, the terrain narrowed to a single path carved along the cliffside. The drop to their left was sheer, the abyss yawning so far below it swallowed the light. The faint hum that had been at the edge of Arion's hearing since they began their ascent now grew stronger, resonating in the marrow of his bones. Veil spoke at last, his voice low. The threshold is near. Can you feel it? Arion nodded. Every step seemed heavier, as though unseen hands were pressing against him. The air shimmered faintly ahead, distorting the view of the cliffside, and as they drew closer, he realized it was not the air, it was the veil. A rippling sheet of pale silver light arched across the path, anchored to the stone by what looked like molten threads. Beyond it, the cliffside was gone, replaced by a void of swirling blue and violet clouds. Kalen stepped forward, his face unreadable. So this is it, the thing every story warned us not to touch. Irindra's eyes narrowed. And yet here we are. Veil moved toward the veil, placing his hand a hair's breadth from the surface. Energy licked at his skin, forming arcs of white that sank into his palm. His expression twisted, not from pain, but from something deeper, a recognition. It is old, older than the Rift Wars, older than the Ascendants themselves. Arion stepped forward. The hum was deafening now, vibrating in his teeth, in the back of his skull. Can we pass through? Veil turned, eyes glowing faintly. We can, but what lies beyond may not let us leave. The choice hung in the air like a drawn blade. Kalen shifted his grip on his sword. We didn't come this far to turn back. Without another word, Arion stepped through. The sensation was immediate and disorienting, like falling upward while every drop of blood in his body turned to fire. The light devoured him, and for a heartbeat, he thought there was nothing on the other side. Then the world snapped back into place. They stood in a cavern so vast it might have been carved into the heart of a planet. Luminescent rivers of molten silver flowed through channels in the stone, casting a ghostly glow that illuminated towering structures shaped like twisted spires. The air was warm, heavy with the scent of metal and ozone, and at the far end of the cavern stood a figure. It was neither man nor woman, neither entirely flesh nor entirely light. Its form shifted subtly with each passing moment, as though reality couldn't decide what it was. In its hands was a staff crowned with a fragment of crystal that pulsed with the same light as the molten rivers. The figure spoke, its voice a chorus of countless tones layered over one another. Starborn blood, return to the hollow after so long. Tell me why you come. Arion stepped forward, meeting the figure's gaze. Or what he thought was its gaze. We seek the ascendant relic. The figure's shifting form stilled. Many have sought it. All failed. You will too. Kalen's hand tightened on his weapon. We'll take that chance. The figure turned its head slightly, as if listening to something far away. You misunderstand. The relic does not wish to be found. A rumble shook the cavern. The molten rivers began to surge, their light brightening until it burned the eyes. Veil's voice cut through the chaos. Arion, this place is reacting to us. We have to move. The figure's staff struck the ground, and the air rippled violently. From the shadows between the spires, shapes began to emerge, towering constructs of metal and bone, their eyes glowing with the same silver light. Arion's stomach tightened. Guardians. Irindra's daggers flashed in the molten light. Looks like we've overstayed our welcome. The constructs moved as one, their steps shaking the stone. Arion looked to the others. We hold them off, find the relic, and get out. Whatever it takes. The figure's voice followed them as they drew their weapons. You cannot take what belongs to the Veil. You can only join it. The Guardians charged, and the cavern erupted into chaos. Chapter 9. Fractured Horizons. The rift pulsed like a living wound in the void, its edges jagged and restless, as if something on the other side was clawing to get out. Irindra had seen it before, had even crossed it, but never like this. The colors were wrong. Once, the rift shimmered in deep blues and pale silvers, a gateway framed in cold beauty. Now, veins of crimson webbed through it, twisting the light into something feverish, almost predatory. He stood aboard the Vigilant Oath, flanked by the crew who had followed him through war, exile, and battles most had no right surviving. The air hummed with tension, every eye drawn to the expanding tear in reality ahead. It wasn't just a passage. It was a signal. Behind him, Captain Reese kept his voice low, but the weight of his words carried. This isn't just rift instability. Something's pushing from the other side. Irinder didn't reply. He didn't have to. They all felt it. The same oppressive pull in their chests, like unseen hands pressing inward. It was the same sensation he felt when they'd first faced the Leviathan in the shadow of the Black Maw. And yet, there was something colder now, something that did not belong to any living thing. Across the bridge, Serenia studied the rift through a narrow lens array, her hands tightening on the console. This pattern isn't random. These pulses, they're matching the relic's resonance frequency. Irinder's attention sharpened. The relic, the Veil fragment, lay in the containment vault, its surface dormant since they'd pried it from the ruins on Othis Prime. But if it was resonating now, it meant the rift was responding to it, or calling it. We've been tracked, Serenia continued, her voice quieter now. Someone, or something, knows we have it. The deck beneath their feet trembled as the rift flared. Not a ripple, a surge. It pushed against the space around them like a tide rushing up against a fragile shore. A voice crackled over comms. Jalen, monitoring from the outer deck. We got readings that don't make sense. Multiple mass signatures, but they're not ships. They're projections? Projections? Reese repeated. Jalen hesitated. They're not solid. More like shadows. Echoes of ships that aren't here anymore. Irinder's pulse quickened. Star echoes. He'd heard of them before. Residual imprints left when vessels were obliterated in spatial anomalies. But those were harmless. Ghosts without teeth. The bridge lights flickered. Shadows crept across the bulkheads, distorting the space like heat haze. One of them passed over Serenia's console, and for an instant her reflection in the glass wasn't hers. Irinder saw it too. The face in the reflection was older, gaunter, eyes hollow as if all the light had been drained from them. Then it was gone, leaving Serenia staring back at herself, her skin pale. Rhys barked over his shoulder. Shields to full. Power up the drive. Before they could move, the rift rippled outward again. This time, something stepped through. It wasn't a ship. It wasn't even a shape in the conventional sense. More like an arrangement of light and shadow, given form, its edges indistinct, its presence impossible to ignore. It felt like looking at a memory you weren't supposed to remember. The crew recoiled instinctively, but Arinder forced himself to remain still, his mind trying to process what his eyes refused to understand. Serenia's console flared with static. The signal, it's communicating. Communicating? Rhys snapped. With what? With the relic. The deck plating groaned as if the ship itself was under pressure. The containment vault deep in the hold let out a low hum, vibrating in harmony with the rift. Arinder could feel the pull now. Not physical, but something that reached deeper. It was like the relic was a key, and the rift was a lock straining to open. Jalen's voice cut through the comms again, tighter this time. We got another contact. Not a projection. This one's real. On the viewport's far edge, a ship emerged. Sleek, predatory. Its hull was etched with markings that hadn't been seen in centuries, symbols of a people who had vanished when the Starborn first crossed into known space. The crew froze. No one had to say the name. The Ascendants. But this ship was wrong. Its hull was fractured in places, the damage sealed not with plating, but with strands of dark, crystalline growth. The same crystal that had begun to infest the relic's surface days ago. Rhys exhaled slowly. That's impossible. The rift's edge warped again, the crimson veins widening, stretching outward toward both ships like grasping tendrils. Arinder's mind raced. If the Ascendants had crossed back through, they hadn't come alone. And if that crystal was here, then the corruption they'd seen on distant worlds was not just spreading, it was being guided. Serenia turned to him, eyes sharp despite the fear beneath. We can't let them get the relic. If they do, the ship shuddered as if struck, though no weapon fire had come. The lights dimmed, replaced by a dull red glow that bathed the bridge in shadow. Outside, the Ascendant vessel began to shift, its structure folding in ways that should have been impossible, its silhouette warping until it resembled the same formless entity that had first stepped through. The voice came then, not through comms, not through sound. It was inside them, cold, patient. The veil will be whole again. Arinder felt the temperature drop. Around him, the crew shivered. The rift flared one last time before collapsing in on itself. And the Ascendant vessel, the entity, and half the stars outside the viewport vanished with it. Only the relic's hum remained, steady and unrelenting. Rhys broke the silence, his voice grim. We're not chasing them, are we? Arinder looked at the empty void where the rift had been. No, but he knew, deep down, that they were already being pulled toward whatever lay beyond it. Chapter 10. The Last Fracture. The stars above the veil seemed wrong. Not just distant, not just cold, but watching. It was as if the constellations had shifted in the span of a heartbeat, forming patterns the mind wasn't meant to recognize. Kalen could feel it pressing at the back of his thoughts, an unspoken question worming its way into the space between breaths. The air inside the broken ridge of the lunar plateau felt stale, metallic, heavy with the weight of something ancient. Around him, the team moved in near silence, boots sinking into the fine black dust. Even the crunch of their steps seemed to be swallowed by the emptiness here. Lyra kept to the front, her eyes flicking constantly between the jagged ground and the rippling shimmer that marked the veil's edge. It wasn't a wall, not exactly. More like the horizon itself had decided to fold in on itself, layering two realities so close together that sometimes they bled into each other. The rift at the center of the plateau pulsed faintly with a cold, silver light. It was too deliberate to be natural. The glow carried the steady rhythm of something alive, a slow heartbeat that seemed to synchronize with Kalen's own. We're not supposed to be here, his mind whispered. And yet they had come, because the coordinates burned into the ascendant relic were not a suggestion. They were a summons. Terran crouched beside a shard of glass-like stone jutting from the ground, running gloved fingers across the surface. This isn't just veil residue. It's grown, like the rift is seeding the environment. Lyra didn't respond. She was staring at the rift, her jaw set, her shoulders tense. Kaelin saw the way her fingers twitched, as if resisting the urge to reach for the fractured light. Something moved within it. Not a shape, not in the way normal matter moved. It was an absence, a deliberate subtraction from reality. His skin prickled as it slid closer, the silver glow bending and warping around it like gravity obeyed a different master here. The relic in Kaelin's pack burned suddenly hot, and the sound hit him before he realized it had been building, a deep, resonant hum that seemed to resonate inside his bones. Then came the voice, not spoken, not heard, but placed directly inside his mind. You carry what was taken. Return it. Kaelin staggered back. His pulse thundered in his ears. The hum deepened, pulling at something in his chest like it meant to drag him forward into the rift. Lyra snapped out of her trance and grabbed his arm. Don't answer it, she hissed. Don't think the words. But the relic was answering for him. The heat spiked, and the intricate lines carved into its surface began to flare with sharp, white fire. The hum shifted, now layered with an almost human tone. Terran's voice cut through, sharp with panic. We need to move. Now, a shadow burst from the rift. It was massive, yet undefined, an impossible geometry that the eye couldn't fully track. Where it touched the ground, the lunar dust curled upward like smoke. A second shadow followed, then a third, each folding into reality as though stepping out from between seconds. Lyra fired, the energy bolts vanishing into their forms without impact. Kaelin felt the relic drag harder against his chest, as if it recognized them. His vision flickered. He saw not the plateau, but a wide obsidian chamber lined with towering monoliths. Figures stood between them, cloaked and faceless, each holding a fragment like his. The vision snapped away, leaving the cold silence of the plateau. We're the last wardens, the voice said. The gate was never yours to unbind. Kaelin's knees buckled. He clutched the relic, fighting the urge to surrender it. Lyra hauled him upright and shoved him toward the far ridge. The shadows followed, moving without sound, without weight, but every step they took made the ground tremble as though their presence itself distorted the plateau's stability. The ridge's far edge dropped into a jagged chasm lit from within by the same silver glow as the rift. Far below, something vast shifted. A low, grinding sound rose from the depths. Terran swore. That's not a floor down there. That's a door. The hum became a roar, and for a split second Kaelin saw the veil tear wider. Not at the plateau, but in the sky itself. Beyond the tear lay a vast sea of black water, broken by the silhouettes of impossible structures rising and falling as if breathing. The shadows stopped at the chasm's edge, their faceless forms turning in perfect unison toward him. One step forward, the silver glow bleeding from the edges of its shape. When it spoke, the voice was no longer inside his mind. It was all around him, woven into the air. If the seal breaks, the Starborn return. Kaelin wanted to ask what that meant, but before he could speak, the ground beneath them cracked with a deafening snap. The ridge gave way. He and Lyra fell, the silver light swallowing them. The last thing he saw before darkness claimed him was the rift above collapsing into a single, blinding point of light, then vanishing completely. Don't forget to subscribe for the next part in this series.